to explain one point to another. So the analogy becomes effective when the point that it is trying to, the tattva that it is trying to demonstrate is actually also illustrated. So after giving the analogy, Narad Muni immediately gives the tattva, and he says thus, that as I have indicated by analogy, now I am indicating by fact. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he writes, fruitive work which has perpetually engaged the living being is compared to the banyan tree in the Bhagavad Gita. So I'm sure you remember, this is chapter 15. For it is certainly very deeply rooted. As long as the propensity for enjoying the fruit of work is there, one has to continue the transmigration of the soul from one body or place to another, according to one's nature of work. So the cause of the material disease is karma. Specifically, it is sakam karma. That is work that is done with the intention of either enjoying the fruits of the work or enjoying the proprietorship on the execution of the work. Now, when this work gets turned to the service of the Lord, it becomes a karma. So it can become akam karma or nishkam karma. Both of them are synonymous terms. They are used at different places. So this concept of karma, we have already been introduced in Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna right at the beginning in the second chapter, he talks about one kind of nishkam karma. This is 239, where he says that thus far I've described the knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen, I explain it to you in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pratha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of work. So this is one kind of nishkam karma that is called jnanashrit nishkam. That on the basis of knowledge, the knowledge, and generally this is knowledge that I am not the body, but I am the soul, one gets detached from the results of the activity. So based on the knowledge, one develops detachment. So it becomes jnanashrit nishkam karma. And then later on in 250, he says that a man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. And this, of course, is bhakti ashrit nishkam karma. So, as Vaishnavas, our program is bhakti ashrit. We are not so much into jnana ashrit, even though the process is potent and recommended, but it is long. It requires one to study the scriptures, to imbibe the tattvas, and then on the platform of knowledge, one begins that sense of detachment. But we don't aspire for that detachment. We aspire for attachment to Krishna, and the detachment is automatically subsumed in it. So that's why we will see devotees, and especially practicing devotees like us, we have not developed that vairagya, and it's not really part of our program. Sometimes devotees face that criticism that you live in a nice house, you're doing a job, taking care of family, driving a good car. Externally, it appears that you're a karma, but then you go about calling yourself a bhakta. And the understanding is that we are actually developing bhakti ashrit akam karma. That whatever we have we start to try and use it in the service of Krishna, whether it's a house or car or salary or family, and it's a process. As we become more rooted in devotion, then the needle turns more and more to vairagya. So this concept that Narad Muni is speaking is very close to, or almost exactly the same concept that Krishna has spoken about in Bhagavad Gita. So here he says that you use Kriya Yoga to destroy Atma. So specifically the verse says that you use Kriya Yoga to destroy Atma. So Kriya, as we know, again, Kriya is a synonym for karma. So basically he's saying use Karma Yoga to destroy Atma. And in this context, Atma is the tree of work. So Atma is one of those words that can mean a lot of things. So we have to be very careful to understand the context of the usage of the word. So Atma can mean the gross body, the self. It can mean the subtle body. It can mean the spiritual body. It can mean Krishna. It can also mean, as it is used over here, it can also mean the tree of work. And the tree of work is synonymous to gross body, because the gross body ultimately is a symptom of the tree of work. Srila Prabhupada would say that having a gross body is like carrying a flag saying that I still have the desire to enjoy the fruits of my activities. So it's like a pataka. It's like a flag that we are still carrying around with us, the tree of our work, with the desire of enjoying the fruits of the tree. So what happens? So Narad Muni says thus, evam, by practicing Kriya Yoga, the person, he said Nranam, becomes kalpanate kalpita. So kalpanate kalpita means competent to dedicate. Dedicate what? Pare, unto the transcendence. And what is the result of this? He says that vinashaya, that it destroys sarva samsriti hetava. It destroys the cause of all forms of material existence. So as we know that there is only one thing that can destroy the cause of all forms of material existence, and that is bhakti. Everything else works on a more superficial level, but bhakti is one that will actually uproot the infinitely large banyan tree of material existence. So Narad Muni is making this point to Srila Vyasadeva, that by evam kriya yoga, that by practicing this bhakti yoga, the person becomes kalpanate kalpita, that he becomes competent on himself to dedicate unto the transcendence, pare, and the result is that sarva samsriti hetava. So every word Narad Muni is picking very, very carefully, and we can understand that because this is the conversation between two very, very exalted. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada also takes this opportunity, and we'll see that Prabhupada does that in more than once. He talks about the progression of a person through devotional service. And at least my take is that Srila Prabhupada does that over and over. One is to assure us that when he talks about the progression, then we get assured that yes, we are at this stage, so we are on the right path. And secondly, to encourage us that the path is not very difficult. So the progression that he talks about in this verse, and it is more consistent with the mood of Narad Muni, because Narad Muni essentially presented himself as a Kripa Siddha. So as we know, there are different kind of siddhas. There are different kind of perfected souls. There is Nitya Siddhas, who are eternally perfected. There are Kripa Siddhas who become perfected because of the the mercy of a devotee. And then there are Sadhana Siddhas who through the process of Sadhana Vaidhi Bhakti become perfected. So even though we hope and pray for Kripa and we get it, but our path is more of Sadhana Siddhi. That we do our devotional service according to the instructions that we are given, look for the purification as a result of that bhakti, and thus make progress. The progression that Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport is more of a devotee of the kind of Narad Muni who made advancements through Kripasiddhi. So he says that the summary is that one has to first of all seek the association of pure devotees who not only are learned in the Vedanta, but are self-realized souls and unalloyed devotees of Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So this is the stage of Sadhu Sangh. In that association, the neophyte devotee must render loving service physically and mentally without reservation. This is the stage of Bhajana Kriya. This service attitude will induce the great soul to be more favorable in bestowing their mercy, which injects the neophyte with all the transcendental qualities of the pure devotees. So this is when the mercy is coming, and the result is so now you can see that the advancements is very rapid. So even a Kripa Siddh will go through the same stages, but the stages are collapsed. So this is the stage of Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha and Ruchi. That the person is getting all the transcendental qualities of the pure devotees. So his anarthas are getting nivrit, he is developing strong faith, and he is developing taste. So next Prabhupada says, gradually this is developed into a strong attachment to hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So this is a Shakti, which makes him able to catch up to the constitutional position of the gross and subtle bodies, and beyond them, the knowledge of the pure soul and his eternal relationship with the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead. So this is the stage of Bhava and Prema. So in the previous verse, Narad Muni had said that by the influence of Bhav, not in the previous verse, this is one of the coming verses, Narad Muni say by the influence of Bhav, Rajas and Tamas are destroyed. So this is Prabhupada talking about the stage of Bhava and Prema. After the relationship is ascertained by establishment of the eternal relation, pure devotional service to the Lord begins, gradually developing into perfect knowledge of the personality of Godhead beyond the purview of the impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. By such Purushottam Yoga, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, so Prabhupada is again picking on the word of the tree, the tree of karma. One is made perfect even during the present corporeal existence, and one exhibits all the good qualities of the Lord to the highest percentage. Such is the gradual development by the association of pure devotees. So this is an important point that is made, is that for a pure devotee, a liberation is a change in one's mentality. It's not necessarily a change in body or a change in place. All that may happen, but essentially it is a change in conception, which is why Prabhupada says that even during the present corporeal existence. And it is understood that souls at this stage, even though they have nothing to do with the gross and subtle body, they still keep it for the sake of serving Krishna and his devotees. Which is why when advanced Vaishnavas, they give up their body, the bodies are not burned, because it is considered that the bodies have been fully spiritualized. They are no longer part of the gross and subtle existence, but because the soul has been using them as an instrument to serve Krishna, they have become fully spiritualized. So that is why they are preserved. So this Purushottam Yoga is actually summarized in the 15th chapter, where Krishna says that whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service of me, O son of Bharat. So Srila Prabhupada essentially is he doesn't quote the words directly, but he's essentially writing the purport of the verse in the last purport of this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. As per Tamal Krishna Maharaj, so when Tamal Krishna Maharaj was doing his PhD, and he was doing his PhD on the works of Srila Prabhupada, he identified what he considered to be Srila Prabhupada's Mahavakya. So Mahavakya is the defining statement. So Mahavakya defines a person, it defines a body of literature. Like Srimad Bhagavatam has two Mahavakyas. The first one is Vadanti Tattva Tattva Vidas Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramateti Bhagavan iti Shabdati. And the second one is Etecham Sakala Pumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So the first one describes the three forms of the Lord, and the second one gives the name Etecham Sakala Pumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayante Yuge Yuge. So Prabhupada's Mahavakya is given in the purport of this verse. And the statement that Prabhupada makes is, the word bhajati is very significant. In many places, the word bhajati is expressed in relationship with the service of the Supreme Lord. And that, so this is the end of the Prabhupada statement. So bhaj is the root word of also bhakti. Therefore, bhakti implies service to Krishna and his devotees. So this was Prabhupada's Mahavakya, that bhakti is service to Krishna and his devotees. So he was very, very clear, unequivocal, and specific about it. And at different places, he calls it out more explicitly. That the root word of bhakti is bhaj. Bhaj is a verse, and bhaj means service in the context of a relationship. So Prabhupada would debunk the notion of bhakti being mental speculation or bhakti being subsumed in something else. He was very, very explicit about it. And if you see his teachings, his own life, the legacy that he left behind, it carries forward his Mahavakya, that bhakti is service, is active service to Krishna and his devotees. Okay, so any questions, comments on this?
Prajya, where is the Mahavakya? Is that the purport? I couldn't find.
Okay, if not, we'll continue to the next verse, 1535. Yadatra kriyate karma bhagavad paritoshanam jnanam yattat adhinam hi bhakti yoga samanvitam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction, somebody may have a question. If you can just hold on.
Yeah, Mataji had questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, I make this mistake. I had my volume at mute. I'm sorry, Mataji, go ahead.
No, so Prajya, I'm just wondering, like that Mahavakya that you read from the Malkrishna Goswami, is that in the purport or like I couldn't find it?
So this particular so he doesn't say Mahabhag, but this particular statement, the word bhajati is very significant. That is in the purport. And you say you couldn't find it?
In this one, in the previous verse before the
Actually, you're right. It's not in this verse. I'll have to see. 1, 5. Bhakti Yoga Samanvitaha. Okay, let me get back to you on this.
sure, Prabhuji, not a problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you said we are sadhana siddhas or
And
kripa
Kripa Siddha both.
Oh, we are both sadhana siddha and kripa siddhas.
We're kind of like what's the right word? We are working hard, hoping to win the lottery ticket. That's our program. That we focus on our sadhana, and we execute devotional service as per rules and regulations. And the understanding is that this will attract the mercy of Krishna's devotees. But primarily we aspire. I mean, we are not sadhana siddhas. We are on the path of being aspirational sadhana siddhas.
But the success is because of kripa, right?
I'm sorry, Mataji, you broke up. Say that again.
Success will be because of kripa.
So yes, you're right. That even the fact that we are able to perform our sadhana bhakti, it's a symptom of kripa. The Madhuri Kadamni, it describes the nature of mercy. So there is some mercy that is like rain, that one who comes in the contact of a devotee will, by fortuitous circumstances, is able to imbibe it. And there is another kind of mercy that is called bala. It's called balad kripa. And and that is called forceful mercy. So balapurvak, by force. So it's kind of like, even if the person may not be ready to take the mercy, even if the person is not qualified to take the mercy, that mercy is so strong that it forces itself into the other person. Sometimes Krishna's interactions with non-devotees, with asuras, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's interactions with Jagai Madhai. So it's the rarest of the rare kind. Narad Muni, even though he presents himself out of humility as a Kripa Siddha, he's more of a Kripa Siddha than a Sadhana Siddha. But of course, he also calls out a lot of his own qualities. That he was humble, he was meek, he was obedient, he was attached to the Bhakti Vedantas, he served them. So there was definitely that aspect of acting as per rules and regulations. But in both cases, the component of mercy is there. For sadhanas, it is a little less, and for kripa, it is a little bit. It's a lot more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have one more question.
Yes, Prabhu.
So, bhakti implies the service to Krishna and his devotees. So,
yes, Prabhu.
Service to Krishna, when we do it, sometimes it will be in the mode of ritualistic as well, right?
Mhm.
So my question is really like when it comes to a priority, uh, when an opportunity is there to serve devotees or Krishna, what should be the priority there?
That's a very good question, and it's a question that is often asked by practicing devotees, because limited time, limited energy, and different situations come. Sometimes the question comes in a little bit different flavor. So this is a question that was asked to Srila Prabhupada, that the purpose of chanting is service to Krishna. If you're getting service to Krishna, do we need to chant? Because we seem to be getting the end results. And the understanding is that the rules and regulations, the basic tenets of sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi bhakti, they are there to strengthen us to perform the higher angas of bhakti. So Vaishnav Seva, Archa Vigraha Seva, Shastra Seva, these all, they're all angas that get nourished by our practice of sadhana Vaidhi bhakti, because we don't have a natural attraction so far. So if somebody says that you're getting opportunity to serve, you may miss your rounds. What will happen is that eventually you will miss both. You'll miss your rounds, and you will miss also the taste for serving devotees. Or if you have deities in your house and there's a situation that you have to go out and do some service to the Vaishnavas, but skip your deity worship, then because of seva prat, the consciousness gets eventually contaminated. So we try and build a strong support system that will always carry us, regardless of circumstances. Because one thing that you will notice is that as you move up the ladder of bhakti, the challenges also become more. So there was this discussion that was once happening. I think it was Shaunik Rishi Prabhu who was sharing that Shaunik Rishi Prabhu. So as you know, he teaches Vaishnava theology in Oxford, but he's a Prabhupada disciple, and he was, I guess, talking to devotees once, and he asked them that, what is it that keeps you alive in bhakti? And without missing a beat, they said Vaishnava Sangha. And then he asked, what do you think is the biggest challenge in your devotional life? And without missing a beat, they said Vaishnava Sangha. So the service to the devotees is the easiest way to attract Krishna's attention. It is also the most difficult way. It is easy to offend devotees, easy to take offense, difficult to always be in the mood of service. We are surrounded by devotees, and sometimes we take them for granted. There was so this was Radhanath Maharaj sharing that there was a congregation member in Chopati temple coming for almost 20 years, chanting 16 rounds, fixed in his sadhana, did not take initiation. And Radhanath Maharaj asked him that, why haven't you taken initiation? You're qualified. And he said, Maharaj, till the time I'm not initiated, I'm treated fairly well in the congregation. I know that when I get initiated, then the treatment will change. So I don't want to be in that situation where I start to develop any antipathy towards devotees. So even though I understand that initiation is very important, I'm also fearful of what would happen to me What would the other devotees do to me if I became a initiated devotee? So his is a particular case, not to say that we follow that path, but the point that you're making is that as we progress on the path of Vaishnav Seva, Vaishnav Sangha, it becomes all the more important for us to make sure that our sadhana is very very important. And if you have situations where we have to make a trade-off, then either if you're mature practicing devotees, we understand the tattva and make the trade-off, or we take shelter of Guru Maharaj, other senior devotees to help us make the trade-off.
Thank you, Prabhu.
But choosing the Krishna is over devotees is much safer option, right?
If you consistently choose Krishna over devotees, you will become an impersonalist, because there is no Krishna without his devotees. Prabhupada would say, have you ever seen Krishna alone? He is with Srimati Radharani, he is with Yashoda Mai, Nanda Baba, he is with the gopis, he is with the gopas, or he is with the cows. He is never alone. So there is no Krishna without his devotees. So you can't ever choose Krishna over his devotees. They are one and the same. Choosing Krishna means choosing his devotees, and vice versa. Again, I seem to have a lot of anecdotal examples, so I'll just share one quickly with you. So this was shared with me when I was in by a devotee who lived in Gita Nagari for 10 years. And as you know, that Gita Nagari, the standards of sadhana are, or were, at one point there were 200 people living in Gita Nagari. The standards of sadhana are very high in Gita Nagari. And she and her, so she's a disciple of Satsarup Maharaj. Her husband is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And they left. Eventually they left. And the reason she said she left is because she said that there was so much focus exclusively on Krishna that the devotees started looking upon each other as an encumbrance. And she said literally in the morning, people would be running to attend Mangal Arati. They would actually run over one another. And the mood was, this is me, this is Krishna, I have to go back to Godhead. Exalted mood, unquestionably, but not one that will sustain one's bhakti. And because she lived there for a long time, she herself saw that. She said that people who were more exclusively focused on their relationship with Krishna to the exclusion of everybody were amongst the first to leave. And because they were not getting that rasa. So the rasa of bhakti with Krishna, it permeates through the lotus feet of the devotees. So that's why we always seek to serve the lotus feet of the devotees.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Anything else? Okay, we'll do the next verse, 1535. Yadatra kriyate karma bhagavad paritoshanam jnanam yattad adhinam hi bhakti yoga samanvitam. Whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service to the Lord. And what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. So in his Vedas, Srila Vyasadeva has extensively spoken about karma and gyan. So previously, Narad Muni had said that karma you can link to bhakti by dedicating those activities to Krishna. So Vyasadeva would say, but what about Gyan? So Narad Muni is answering that implicit question. He is saying that Gyan actually becomes a concomitant factor. It becomes a automatic byproduct. That as one executes bhakti, one's understanding of the tattvas, they automatically manifest. So by nature, the Vedas, they are they prescribe many things and they prohibit many things. So based on Kal, Desh and Patra. So like in Krishna in chapter 4, he says that the intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should properly know what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. He says, bodhavyam cha vikrama. What is forbidden actions? Akarmanas cha bodhavya. What is akarma? And karmanaha api bodhavyam. And also you should know what is fruitive activities. So Vyasa may say, how will they get this understanding? That what is prescribed activities, what is activities that are devoid of any reactions, what are forbidden activities. So more specifically, he's talking about people like us who execute on the path of bhakti without a proper understanding of the Vedas, because we never studied the Vedas. We don't know what Manu Samhita talks about. We don't know what is the duties and responsibilities according to our varna and our ashram. And if you meet a person who is a pandit in the Vedas, and he will say that you don't know, you don't understand what the Vedas are. You're not bodhavyam about karmana, you're not bodhavyam about nishkarma, you're not bodhavyam about akarma. So Narad Muni is dispelling that concern. And Prabhupada comments on this. He says that if one is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand the distinction between action, inaction, and unauthorized action. One has to apply oneself to such an analysis of action, reaction, and perverted actions, because it is a very difficult subject matter. So Prabhupada starts off with the purport, agreeing with the implicit postulate of Srila Vyasadeva, that it's a very difficult subject matter, but you have to understand. But what is the solution that Narad Muni is saying? He is saying that with the universal understanding of Bhakti Yoga, he says yat karma, that any work, yat karma kriyate, that any work that is done, bhagavad paritoshan, for the satisfaction of Krishna, that will be a karma. So Vyas might say, okay, fine, Narad, we have taken care, but he will say, Shri Narad. So he says, fine, Shri Narad ji, you've taken care of karma. What about Gyan? So then Narad Muni says that, Yattad Gyanam, that what is called knowledge, adhinam hi, is fully dependent. Not only is it fully dependent, but it is Bhakti Yoga Samanvitam, that it is a concomitant factor. So Samanvitam means alongside. It's not the result, it's not the fruition, but it is a concomitant factor. It is as if you're eating, your hunger does not go away when you finish eating. As you eat, your hunger goes away. It is concomitant. So as you execute bhakti, that knowledge is concomitant. What knowledge? The knowledge of the distinction between karma, akarma, and vikarma. And that is why we are studying the Bhagavatam, so that we can understand that the bhakti of Krishna is so glorious that it's automatically subsuming karma and jnana. We do not say it at a sentimental level, but analytically, here it is being shown. And Prabhupada continues in the purport. He says that to understand Krishna consciousness and actions according to its modes, one has to understand one's relationship with the Supreme. That is, one who has learned perfectly. That is, one who has learned perfectly knows that every living entity is an eternal servitor of the Lord, and that consequently one has to act in Krishna consciousness. So the result of bhakti is sambandh and abhidevya. Prabhupada is calling it out indirectly, that one understands one relationship with Krishna, and then one knows how to act in that relationship. And how do we get the knowledge? So one may ask that, is it a mystical process? To some extent it is. That it is a mystical process because Krishna gives us that understanding. So Krishna in the Chaturshloki Gita, he says that Tesham satato yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti. That to those who are constantly devoted in serving me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. And Suta Goswami himself, in the second chapter, first canto, he makes a similar point. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chatat Ahitu. That Vasudeva Bhagavati. That the result of Bhakti Yoga, the result of Vasudeva of serving Krishna is Janatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chatat Ahitu. So in this verse, Narad is tying together both the path of karma and the path of jnana into bhakti yoga. That one gets freed of the fruitive reactions of karma by dedicating the results to Krishna, and by the execution of this bhakti, one gets all the knowledge that is necessary to free themselves from this material world and go back to Krishna. Okay, any other questions, comments?
So you said that as a result of bhakti one gets knowledge. The Krishna says in the verse. So that is realization, right? Because we also have transcendental knowledge through scriptures. So how that knowledge is different from the knowledge available in scripture? Does it refer to realization?
It's a good point. So the normal progress of knowledge is from gyan to vigyan, right? We understand something theoretically, and then we put that knowledge into action. We start getting realizations. We get vigyan, but through the process of bhakti, through vigyan we get gyan. That through realizations we get an understanding. Because when we are executing, so I'm trying to think of a practical example, and one thing that comes to my mind is this process of deity worship. That when pujaris, when they start being more absorbed into deity worship, into decorating the deities, into dressing the deities, one thing that automatically happens is that they develop this sense of detachment from themselves, from decorating themselves, or taking or being too much absorbed into their own ornamentation. And this is an example of vigyan. So the gyan is, you're not the body, and the natural progression would be that from that gyan comes the vigyan. If you're not the body, why invest Why invest too much time in it? But this is an example where it happens through the process of bhakti, that as one gets more and more absorbed in serving the deities, one automatically gets less absorbed in taking care of themselves. Not that they're still suchi, they're clean, they're healthy, um, they're presentable, but that mood of absorption becomes diluted. And from that vigyan, eventually that understanding comes very, very easily. That yes, I'm not my body.
It's not intellectual anymore. It's reality.
It is real. Yes, yes. And it's not to say that at some point it does not become intellectual. So, but the progression is different. It's in the opposite. That we first get realizations, and then the realization, it opens up our minds to our understanding. So that's why Vaishnavas are considered to be, so of the 26 qualities of Vaishnava, one of the qualities is Kavi. So Kavi means expert. And they're also expert in discriminating. They're expert in understanding. So that knowledge is there. They're not what's the right word? They're not sentimental fools, right? So the tattva is there, but it is supported by deep realizations.
Nice. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Next verse, 1536. Kurvanayatra karmani bhagva chikshaya sharat. Chikshaya sakrat. Bhagva chikshaya sakrat. Grananti gunanamani Krishna anusmarananti cha. While performing duties to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him, his name, and his qualities. So these are answers to questions that have just been asked, and Srila Vyasadeva may have implicitly asked that how does one develop karma and jnana through the process of bhakti. So Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Nag Muni says, okay, let me explain it to you. So this is an alankar. This is an embellishment of the previous verse, where it takes the tattva and drills down deeper into it. So it adorns it by a deeper understanding. So the statement that was made that Bhakti Yoga will give karma and jnana. In this verse, Narad Muni is saying that if one acts according to the order of Krishna, so he says Bhagwak Chikya Shakrat, one will constantly remember his name and qualities. Guna Namani Krishnasya Anusmaranti Cha. In this way, Kriya Yoga becomes Bhakti Yoga. So just like we were giving an example of deity worship, Narad Muni gives a more general example that what happens when you execute Bhakti Yoga. Automatically, by executing Bhakti Yoga, then you will engage in the various angas of Bhakti, which is remembering him, his naam, his roop, and his gun. And because of that, one will develop the supporting angas of karma and jnana. So, in the commentary to this verse, Srila Sridhar Swami, he says that chanting and remembering the Lord's name and glories cause one to develop devotion for the Lord. And Jiva Goswami says that while working for Krishna's pleasure, devotees naturally chant his name and remember him due to their affection for him. So Krishna makes a similar point in Bhagavad Gita. This is in 8.7. He says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha may arpita manobuddhir mam evashasi asamshaya. Therefore, Arjun, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So this is the so-called mysticism of bhakti that is also being explained. That when one executes devotional service, one will automatically think about Krishna's name, form, and qualities. One will automatically chant Krishna's name, and in this way, all the activities that they will do will be connected to Krishna. Their realizations will be connected to Krishna, and Bhakti Yoga will manifest, encompassing both karma and jnana. So Prabhupada in the purport, he says that this is not only the point that he makes is that it is not only a result, but it is also a prerequisite. So Prabhupada says that an expert devotee of the Lord can mold his life in such a way that while performing all kinds of duties either for this or the next life, he can constantly, so when Prabhupada says next life, these are more karam kanda, because devotees really they don't aspire to have a next life, so they don't perform activities for the next life. So when Prabhupada says when somebody is performing activities for the next life, these are pious activities. But then he's saying that such a person can constantly remember the Lord's name, fame, qualities, etc. The order of the Lord is distinctly there in Bhagavad Gita. One should work only for the Lord in all spheres of life. In every sphere of life, the Lord should be situated as the proprietor. And then later on in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that that whether we like it or not, Krishna is the ultimate benefactor. So better for us to be aware of that fact and act in such a way. So Prabhupada says that according to the Vedic rites, even in the worship of some demigod, like Indra, Brahma, Saraswati, and Ganesh, the system is that in all circumstances, the representation of Vishnu must be there as Yageshwar, or the controlling power of such sacrifices. It is recommended that a particular demigod be worshipped for a particular person, but still the presence of Vishnu is compulsory in order to make the function proper. So even when we do, and I'm sure you've all had experience with it, that even when you do karma kanda, yagya, the first thing that you do is you establish the coconut. You establish that coconut on a pot. You tie the red thread around it. The priest will chant verses for Lord Vishnu, Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu. So they will translate those. So the very first deity that is established is Lord Vishnu, with the understanding that everything is being done under his auspiciousness. So Prabhupada has a fairly long and very interesting purport that I would recommend that you read again, because in the later part of the purport, he talks about Dravya Shuddhi. He talks about this point that everyone should donate 50% of their salary to the service of Krishna. And that way, one will constantly be, so the same principle of Bhakti Yoga appears. That when constantly one is engaged in work, then that consciousness is also there that this work is giving me money to serve Krishna. So the detachment will come, the freedom from the reactions of the work will come. So the result of both karma and gyan will, akarma rather, and gyan will manifest. And Prabhupada, he uses this as a strong motivator, because in this age of Kali, almost all of us are involved in some kind of commerce. So Prabhupada is connecting to us at that level to help us develop that consciousness. Okay, any questions, comments on this? Okay, if not, we'll continue with the next verse, 1537. Yes, Sharan Prabhu, I can hear you now.
Yes, Haribol. This question comes very often about the 50% of the salary. I know I think in Nectar of Devotion and also Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami says about 25%. And then, while we have some discussion before, we said that should it be 50% of the total income, or should be 25% of whatever remain after you take all the expenses, something like that. I got this question many times. Sometimes it's difficult to answer.
It is true. It is a question that does get answered differently. And my sense is that Prabhupada also gave slightly different, the instructions are the same, but perhaps he gave slightly different flavors. Because I remember at one point Prabhupada said that whatever you make, you should divide it into 3 parts. One part you should use for your subsistence, for your current subsistence. 1/3 part you should save for your future, and then 1/3 part you should use for the service of Krishna and his devotees. Yet another time I was in a lecture and similar question was asked. You're right, it gets asked a lot. That is it 50% of your income? If you're making $100, you keep away $50, or is it 50% of your disposable income? So you make $100, it takes you $60 to get by. You have $40 left. So do you give $20 over there, and the remaining $20 is for saving? So some of these discussions go long and become animated, but what I've seen is that the general conclusion is that to the best of your ability, use some of your wealth in the service of Krishna and his devotees. And it's again a very, very personal interaction. It will grow. It will grow with time as one's realization grows, as one's dependence on one's own wealth, that sense of being captive to one's own, the sense of looking for safety in one's own wealth, as that goes away. Amongst the Mormons, they have a strict rule called I think it's called tithing, and they give away 10% of their income. So there was some discussion apparently in ISKCON to see if initiated devotees can be expected to follow at least the tithing, which is give 10% of their income. Obviously, it hasn't really come as a rule, so to speak. But principle is important.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you, bro. Anything else? Okay. So the previous verse that ended Narad Muni's philosophical explanations on the correlation between bhakti and karma and Gyan. So from 1537 till the end of the chapter, 1540, he will kind of so the message that he will give that I have explained to you the philosophy. I have demonstrated it by my own life. I have also answered your implicit questions. So in conclusion, please do what I asked you to do at the beginning of the discussion, which is directly glorify Krishna. So this verse is a special verse. It is it is one of the few verses in the Bhagavatam that starts with the pranava, Om. So as we know, the very first verse in the Bhagavad, it starts with Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadiyasya Yato Navayaditaratas. And generally speaking, Puranic verses do not start with Om, because the pranav Om is meant to be chanted by the Brahmins. So the Vedic mantras, they will almost always start with an Om. So like when we do yagyas, then you will see that the verses, they will the mantras, they will start with Om. That Om Apavitra Pavitro Va, and Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and Om Api Gachanti Te Bhuta. So different verses, he will say, they will always start with the chanting of the Om to attract the attention of Krishna. So so Narad Muni at this point, what he is saying is, Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradyumaya Aniruddhaya Nama Sankarshanaya Cha. So he's concluding his teaching, and Borijan Prabhu says Narad Muni is concluding his teaching very similar to the way Srila Prabhupada would conclude his classes. So how Prabhupada conclude his classes? He would say, let us have some kirtan. So Prabhupada classes used to be kirtan at the beginning, a class, and kirtan at the end. So Srila Narad Muni, he has glorified bhakti. Now he's saying to Vyas that let us all chant the glories of Vasudeva, along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshan. So if you look at it, Narad Muni, his conversation with Srila Vyasadeva is divided into kind of like three stages. The first is philosophical. He speaks about the tattva of Krishna tattva, bhakti tattva. The second is illustrative. He talks about his own life. And the final is experiential. So he's saying that now that you have heard the philosophy, now that you have seen it in action, try it for yourself. So that is why he says, now let us chant the glories of, and he talks about the Chaturvyuha. So this particular verse is the 33 syllable Vedic mantra, and this mantra is chanted in many yagyas also. So Prabhupada in the purport says that this is a Vedic Hemar mantra beginning with the Omkar Pranav, and thus the mantra is established by the transcendental chanting process, namely Om Nama Dhimahi, etc. So Puranas, as I said, they typically don't contain mantras. What they contain are shlokas, and there is a lot of latitude in the shlokas. Shlokas can be pronounced differently. So not that they can be pronounced, but there is no offense. Mantras, there is offense. The mantras become nishfal. Vina, mantra, vinasta. They become nishfal if they're pronounced differently. And in some cases, they can actually have the opposite effect. So the Puranas are mostly shlokas. The Bhagavad Purana is mostly shlokas in the Anustubh meter, and some of them are in the Gayatri meter. But this particular mantra is purposefully put here by Narad Muni to indicate the non-difference between the Puranas and the Vedas. Otherwise, why would Narad Muni invoke a Vedic mantra in a Puran? Because the point that he's trying to make is that the process that I'm explaining to you is going to take you to the same conclusion as the Vedas. The knowledge in the Vedas that will lead to some kind of practice is the same that I am directly taking to you. So that is why very boldly in Narad Muni, he is saying Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam. So interestingly, this verse appears 2 times in the Bhagavatam with a very slight modification. So in this it is Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam, and then later on again it is spoken by Narad Muni. It is Om Namo Tubhyam Bhagavate. The other 3 lines are the same. Vasudevaya Dhimahi. And the second time it is spoken to Maharaj Chitraketu. So this is a pastime that you all are familiar with. In the 6th canto, Maharaj Chitraketu did not have a son, then he had a son, then he lost the son, and then he was really, really desolate. And at that time, Parvat Muni and Narad Muni come, and then Narad Muni gives him this mantra to recite in order to make spiritual advancements. And then we see that Maharaj Chitraketu, by reciting this mantra, he becomes a pure devotee. So Narad Muni is both inviting Srila Vyasadeva, and through Srila Vyasadeva is inviting us that through the process of bhakti, one will get access to the highest goal that the Vedas promise us. Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says, now the question which was raised by the great rishis headed by Shaunaka regarding the confidential part of Suta's achievement. So this is the question that was raised by the rishis in 1.4.13, that they were asking Suta Goswami about. So they were asking Suta Goswami more about the circumstances. So Srila Prabhupada continues, regarding the confidential part of Suta's achievement, through the spiritual master is explained herein by the chanting of this hymn consisting of 33 letters. And the mantra is addressed to the 4 deities or the Lord with his plenary expansions. The central figure is Lord Krishna because the plenary portions are his aides de camp. The most confidential part of the instruction is that one should always chant and remember the glories of the Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with his different plenary portions expanded as Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh. These expansions are the original deities of all the truths. Namely, they are Vishnu Tattvas or Shakti Tattvas. So I'll stop here, and so we have 3 more verses, but I don't want to hurry. So we'll finish. So that will finish the chapter, and then we'll start with the 6th chapter next week. And at this point, I'll stop and see if there's any questions or comments.
Prabhu, just a comment.
Yes, Prabhu.
In the Pranam mantra, Guru Pranam mantra, we say Nama Om. It's not Om Nama. Namo. I'm just, while you were reading the verse, I was thinking about that. I just want to just say that.
Yes, yes. We do say Nama Om, and it's in the 15th chapter. I forget, but there is a verse that talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. I was saying there's a verse that talks about a little bit more details about the invocation. What does the invocation of Om give to us? So, in summary, it is basically like a flag that we put forth to say that everything that follows is transcendental. So the Om is our bridge from the material to the spiritual world. It is, of course, the Shabda Brahman, the most impersonal form of Brahman, but the Pranav is basically there. So just like the Om is through which the spiritual world connects with the material world. So before the material world is created, there is Om, and through the Om, the material world comes. So similarly, they use the Om for the same bridge in the opposite direction, from the material to the spiritual world. But I'm not an expert on Om per se. But thank you for the point, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
On your point, mantras become nishfal if pronounced differently. So probably this might have raised several times on, and we know what the purpose, but this is a strong statement if it is like due to language barriers, they do pronounce differently, right? Like, for example, even Mahamantra is being like whatever the language a devotee has, probably it will be spelled differently. So how can we state that if it is pronounced differently, it is an ishfal there?
Vedic mantras. So that is why there's a lot of stipulation before one is considered qualified to recite Vedic mantras. One has to go through the Vedangas, through Vyakaran, Nirkot, the study of the alphabets, the 6 Vedangas. Prabhupada would take an expert student studying under an expert teacher at least 8 years to understand, and only then one is qualified to approach the Vedas. And the reason is that the sound vibrations, they contain a mystical potency in them. So that is why it is through this sound vibration that the desired effect is achieved. And if those vibrations are different, then either that effect will not be achieved, or a different effect will be achieved. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra is an exception, and it appears in the Vedas, it appears in the Upanishads, appears in the Purans, and it is different because, for one, it's not it does not have Om preceding it. The way that we chant it is different from the way that it appears in the Vedas. We chant Krishna first, in the Vedas it appears with Ram first. But mostly because it has been willed in that way. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, they have willed it. So what they want happens, and that's their desire. I'm trying to think if this pastime is in Mahabharata or in. I think it's in the Mahabharata, but this particular pastime of Indra, who had engaged, and I forget the name. So there was a time when Indra was in a lot of trouble, and then on the advice of Brahma, he engaged the son of Twistha to be his Purohit. I'm sorry? So he engaged the son of Twistha. I forgot the name of his son. I think it was, so he had 3 heads. And Vishwarup, his name was Vishwarup. And Vishwarup is the one who actually gave Indra the Narayan Kavach, by which he became strong and he was able to defeat the demons. But then later on, because Vishwarup, even though his father was a Prajapati and a Brahman, his mother was from an Asuric family. And because he had attraction to his mother's family also, so when he was offering oblations, through one of the mouths he would chant mantras for the devas, but secretly through the other mouth he was chanting oblations for the asuras. So the asuras were also becoming stronger and stronger through the oblations. And then when Indra found out about it, he became very angry, and by his thunderbolt he cut the head off Vishwarup. So when Twistha found out about that, he became very angry, and then he performed a yajna, and he wanted to create a demon that would kill Indra. And the name of the demon, which you all have read that pastime, was Vritasur. So when he created Vritasur, then he chanted this mantra, which had this word Indraha, which means that this personality will be, so Saha is killer. Atmaha, like the word Ishopanishad, it says Atmaha. Such a person is a killer of the soul. So he says Indraha, killer of Indra. But accidentally, he says Indraha. So the long A completely changes the meaning of the mantra. So instead of saying one who is killed by Indra, one who will kill Indra, the meaning becomes that one who is going to be killed by Indra. And ultimately that's what happens to Vritasur. So in the purport, Prabhupada writes this point that the pronunciation of the Vedic mantras is very, very important. One has to be very punctilious about it. And that is why he did not recommend people from chanting various Vedic mantras, firstly, without receiving them in disciplic succession, and secondly, without understanding the proper way to pronounce it. He said, at best, they are nishfal. At worst, they could do you a lot of harm.
Thank you very much.
Probably better to chant the name of Gauranga, Nityananda. No offense.
No offense. Yes. Even like Prem Kishore Prabhu is saying Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we do see people chanting the mantras differently. And at least my understanding is that as long as the essence of the the mantra is not completely Chandramouli Maharaj was once sharing this. It's obviously a make-believe story, but he was sharing it that a devotee once dies. He was chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra all his life, and he dies, and then he finds himself in a strange planet, and there are 2 really ferocious-looking beings over there. And the devotee is looking around for Krishna. He says, "Who are you?" And the first one says that I am Krishna, and the second one says that I am Rama. So he says, "What are you 2 doing here?" And they say, "Well, you have been chanting our names all your life, so we are here for you." So it turned out the devotee was chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So the Chandramouli Maharaj is making this point that there are certain, we of course we are given certain liberties, but should not take undue advantage of it. In the Australian temple, they would have this. I guess maybe it's because of their accent, but people over there they would say there was a people who chanted the Hare Krishna mantra as the cat mantra. So people would chant, here kitty, here kitty, 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 here kitty, 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 kitty. So they, it would be like calling the cat cat over there. So these are just these are devotee jokes, but the underlying principle is that to the best of our ability. I remember we were once chanting when Mukund Maharaj was there, and he said that try and chant the Re in Krishna properly. And then I found out was that if you chant the Re in Krishna properly, you have to pay attention to the mantra, because the moment your attention goes away, Krishna becomes Krishna. So the Re disappears. It becomes Hare Krishna, Krishna. So it becomes Krishna. But if you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, you have to pay attention to the mantra. So just Maharaj was very humble. He said, if you don't mind, may I make a suggestion for you? And then he said that. But to the best of our ability, we chant it as close as possible. But there's no worst case situation. I mean, even though Chandramouli Maharaj was making a joke, unlikely we'll go to the planet of Kinna and Rama, and regardless, or we become cats in our next life. The mercy is, Haridas Thakur says that the mercy is there. Even when the Muslims, they say haram, they're chanting Ram's name. So they're making devotional advancement. Okay. Anything else?
So it's really, I think, consciousness, because even if we say Hare Krishna properly, and if we are not remembering Krishna, we'll not get the result. So even if we don't say Krishna's name, if we are not able to say Krishna's name properly because of the accent, but if we remember Krishna, it still has a result, proper result, I think.
It still has a result. Yeah, our program is mostly about consciousness. That if you're able to focus our thoughts. I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't seen a lot of people because these are all proper nouns. I haven't seen a lot of people struggling with accents that much, at least for the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. I know, for Prem Dhwani, or for a lot of, or for the recitation of the Bhagavatam shlokas, we have an Indian background, we ourselves struggle with it, just because Sanskrit, we did not study Sanskrit properly. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, generally, if a person is as you were saying, that if the person is interested sincerely, it's kind of like it's kind of like if you get to know a person, you will also give importance to what is important to the person. So Krishna's name is Krishna, right? So even though I may have a different accent, and if you know that the name is important to the person, we'll make the effort. We've all that have that experience, that our names are different. We come to this country, there's always somebody special in the country who will say, what's your name? Can you pronounce it for me? They'll pronounce it back for you. Is this close enough? And it makes us feel good that this person is actually taking the little bit extra step. So it's just a manifestation of our sincerity.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll stop at this point. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha asindubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.